All right, everyone. Welcome to the last TheHours live stream. Today we have 0xalxi with us, who's the creator of some really awesome NFT collections in the past, like entropes and spells. We're going to be taking a look at the current hours auction, it's currently on a pretty interesting trajectory over the past day. Things have changed quite a bit, so we'll be taking a look at that. But without further ado, I have him on the call. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on. This is like a pretty cool project, and I got to see a little bit of you working on it, before release. And yeah, I love the format, and I hope that people can enjoy whatever I'm about to make on this live stream. I got into I guess like Web3 crypto NFT world through my interest in collective decision making, and the idea that the blockchain is a sort of powerful substrate for enabling multiplayer operation, human network formation in a way that's really interesting and potentially very powerful. And my first NFT project was this project called Entropes. And the way Entropes works is it's an NFT that begins with generative art that begins as a simple circle, and it's collaboration by transaction. So every time you transfer the piece to the next holder, the art evolves towards like greater complexity. And so in order to create something interesting, you need to conduct transactions with other people. And this kind of led to it's a pretty remarkable like collaboration in the community, and just strangers who don't know each other spending ETH to pass around each other's NFTs, and then just handing it off to receiving this NFT, just paying to the transaction fee to hand it off to somebody else. So there's kind of like this free mode of playing where you're cooperating, and then there's the kind of competitive mode where you're transacting and you're selling it on an exchange. So so that was the first project, and this was sort of around the time. This is like shortly after Loot came out, and Loot was a project that really I thought it was a crazy project, and it sort of seemed ridiculous, but it was like a really interesting distillation of an idea about decentralized coordination. And I thought, it sort of, in my estimation, it sort of ended up being unsuccessful because there wasn't enough ability for the community to collaborate. And when somebody built what now are known as these derivative projects, those projects ultimately sort of sapped. It's arguable how much they gave back, but largely they sapped value from the community of holders, and essentially would take capital and then kind of like leave. And so it ended up not being a super value add to Loot. And so, still there's opportunity for somebody to come along, but if you think about the incentive system, they're not super powerful. And then there's also no like system for holders to invest back in advancing their shared interest. And so then we saw NounsDAO before this really interesting model where you have holders who are able to vote together to advance this, the Nouns brand and advance initiatives that they together, want to decide they want to. There's all kinds of interesting dynamics that are unfolding now. But I wanted to see if I could build, basically, can we make NFTs that do something? And by doing that, can we create a positive sum system where when somebody's building what would otherwise be a derivative, they're actually building an expansion on top of your core this sort of initial project because they're creating an on-chain utility.
Yeah.
And so any kind of interaction between, one project and another adds value to both of them. And that was the premise that led me to, I collaborated with a bunch of other creators on a protocol called ERC-5050, which is a standard for interactive NFTs. And then launched Spells, which was, the first project to implement that. And that was my most recent effort. And now I'm collaborating with a couple of people from that community on kind of a fun, art experiment called Signals. And you can look it up, 00001.000. And it's like
Oh, wow.
we
Nice
call it
URL.
like an on-chain hype. It's a kind of crazy URL. We call it an on-chain hypersculpture. So it's an audiovisual art piece, but with a generative component as well as a traditional visual art component. And then there's also sort of the EVM art component, which is this interaction with spells, where each piece begins as noise, and you have to cast spells on them to reveal the music inside. And that it's both the audio starts as noise, and the visual is a sort of generative, combustion of the art that was done by a fine artist named Ted Mineo.
Yeah.
And
I feel like you're
kind of a crazy out there project. But I think that's kind of what this time is about. I like using this time to experiment.
Yeah, I can tell there's like this thread of interactivity and like collective decision making, and also your interest in, like, you didn't really say composability, but that's how I look at it, of like, there's
Absolutely.
some projects where hopefully the fact that it's on the blockchain and it's in theory it's permissionlessly composable, other people can take that and really build on top of it. It seems so promising, and yet I don't know if there are any great like examples. Like, I think your comments on Loot are really nuanced, and I haven't thought about it in that way before, but I did kind of have the impression that, everyone was excited that there would be all these games that would all use Loot, and then maybe, it's part of what you were saying and part of just that blockchain gaming hasn't flourished as much as we thought, but there haven't been like all those games. And Nouns, as successful as it is as a NFT collection and as a DAO, I think a lot of people are still waiting for like the extension of Nouns that really returns value back to the original Nouns collection. So it's an exciting space because I feel like there's still so much opportunity. But I'm curious what you think are there any overall reasons why you think no one has really unlocked the key, unlocked the answer, I guess, to how to kind of achieve this vision that people were really hoping to achieve with composability?
Yeah, I think it's just a huge challenge of incentives. Mm-hmm. And so it all comes down to incentives. Like for basically all the Web3 gaming efforts, there's definitely examples, and people are sort of starting to pick up on this, and there's some interesting new efforts that will be out, I think over the next couple of years. It's really hard to build a good game, so that's a complete separate thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to build a good game. But if you think about just like the idea that you're going to have an NFT that's a skin that you're going to be able to port across all these different games, what is the incentive for another developer to use the skins that otherwise they'd be able to create themselves, use the skins as another developer, right?
Yeah.
If the reason to do it in the first place is create a way to increase the value of the game that they're making and how much ultimately revenue they're able to generate, they're definitely incentivized to build a great game that stands on its own and they can sell their own assets that they've created.
Yeah,
and there's very little incentive to implement somebody else's.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Unless they're an inferior quality game, in which case they can mooch.
That's what I was going to say.
That's mooching.
Yeah, I was going to say it makes sense. You can use it as an acquisition channel of our game is going to use the top X items from this, already popular game. as maybe a way to like incentivize the people who play that game to be like, oh, I earned like this really expensive sword in this game. Now I can just move to this other game and dominate everyone and, just make a bunch of money off of that. That makes sense for the new game, but you're just leeching off of like you're leeching value from the original game, right? So I think your point is something I hadn't thought about before, where like the original game kind of feels bad about that. In that case, you're just giving people reasons to leave and play other games.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think that's probably the way that the world tends to work is there's this Pareto distribution where there's like a few players who own almost the entire market, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much always.
Yeah.
And so the way that and they tend to be there because they've done a very good job. You can argue about maybe like Madden or the Call of Duty franchise if you want, but
Sure.
that typically like the big successful studios have done a really good job of building great games. We're going way down this gaming
Mm-hmm.
Web3 gaming rabbit hole, but if you're building a game that can't stand on its own 2 feet, and you're in that 80% bucket, it is appealing to try to use the big games assets, but typically, right, it's like that's kind of that's a good point that disincentivizes the large studios from doing that themselves. I think that there is a point though where you can imagine that if there's just gradually enough proliferation of some, like, maybe there's like the 3D glasses kind of effect, where everyone puts the 3D glasses into their NFT, like maybe games, there's like a couple collections that everyone puts in, but realistically, it's like, okay, then you've got 100 players that have the 3D glasses, or 1,000 players, or 10,000 players, whatever that NFT collection size is. But like to what end? Really, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's a cool thing to add in, but like, I don't see that really improving the experience dramatically for like most players. And
Yeah.
I don't see it helping the developer.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with gaming because things seem to feel very like transactional, or like there's a value that the item has. But I think art is a more interesting space, or maybe more. There's like a clear, like lower stakes way of having composability. That's kind of like the project you created, or hopefully what I'm doing with TheHours, where like you're just kind of riffing on people from an art perspective, and you don't have to worry, hopefully, as much about like the incentives. And on that note, why don't we take a look at the current auction, because it's only got about 4 minutes left.
Okay, well, the good news is I did play around with it a little bit before
Oh,
the call,
nice, perfect.
because I wanted to like know how to use it. So I'll share my screen.
Yep, go ahead and share your screen, and then I will relay that to everyone. Okay.
Okay.
I got just a white screen right now.
Oh. Um.
Oh, that's my bad. I got it now. All right, there you are. Okay. Yep, all good. So, yeah, what were you thinking for this one?
All right. So you can see.
Ooh,
I saw the dot, so I thought I'd do an entrope
yeah.
style.
It looks like a camera to me.
Now it does. Yeah, it's a little like the Instagram icon. But when you get two dot, I mean, we could put it in a different corner. I think we'll just maybe we just play around with it
I
a
love the
little bit.
intros. By the way, for intros, like, how are you thinking about what is the kind of transformation that takes when something gets transferred? Like, how did you come up with the different ideas for that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it was actually pretty tricky, because you want to make it so that each new contribution feels meaningful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so you want to feel like you're making this, yeah, like the next step doesn't just get lost. And so actually every time and then you also want it to be like a simple change that's identifiable that leads to like a big change. It can lead to a big change in how the overall piece looks.
yeah.
And so there's a sort of geometric breeding that goes on. So you add a circle and a connector to the previous circle with each transaction. And the placement of that circle, that's all determined by the transaction, or sorry, it's determined by your wallet address, and then merged with hashed together with the whole chain of wallet addresses up to that point. Um,
Ah,
and actually the entrope slowly like zooms out with each addition so that yeah, like your contribution looks like a sizable change.
yeah.
Um, but here we have only like a minute, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead
go
and
for
I'm
it.
gonna connect wallet. And I need to submit a
Nice.
bid.
Yeah, the current one's just 0.01, so anything a little bit
So,
more than that should be fine. Yeah. Oh,
is it
did your MetaMask pop up or not?
did it's pending?
Okay, cool.
It
Nice.
might hopefully it goes through before.
Oh, I think it did. Yeah, because
Okay,
it just
great.
extended. If you bid with less than 3 minutes, it will extend it a bit. So.
Oh, I
Oh,
like what Chomp has though too.
yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's very interesting. Also, hadn't seen that. Just a white line in the middle. Yeah, we went on a kind of a weird vibe. You can click the back button above where it says hour 90, and
Mm-hmm.
some of these have like for a while it was basically like people were trying to draw a face,
Uh-huh. I think I saw that.
and there's like this eyeball, and then this one, I feel like that one just like it made it super crazy to the like grid of eyeballs. It's just like kind of creepy.
You're being watched.
Yeah. But I feel like I'm working on getting the bid history into the gallery page because that's where some of the most interesting interactions have happened of for a single auction, people like bidding against each other and proposing different things, and some people kind of copy what was before them but just modify it a little bit, and that's been really fun to watch.
Oh, now it's an eye. Now we're back to the eye. So
We're
someone's
back
got
to
a
the eye.
proposal a bit above me.
Oh, nice. Chain left. He was on our first live stream. Maybe he's watching now. Yeah, up to you if you
So
want
other
to
people
keep competing, but definitely appreciate the
do other
one bid.
people
But
bid on so everyone's bidding on their own change.
yeah, exactly. So like if no one bids anymore, then chain left will win, and your bid will basically be lost to like the gallery history. Like it'll still be there for people to see in the history, but
Right.
as far as the NFT collection goes, it'll just be the one that wins. Yeah.
And then every time there's a new bid, we get another 2 minutes,
Yeah,
two and
it'll
a half
keep
minutes.
going a few more minutes. Yeah, so up to you
All
if you
right.
want to keep going. But some of these have kept going for a while, so it's like, when will it end?
This is a tough call.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
do
chain
like
lefts is
I
not
do
bad.
like
Yeah, we had last stream the Cathartis team. They tapped out after a few because they just liked the one that was currently winning. Um,
let's see.
would be interesting to have the like this eye in the middle and then all the eyes in the background too.
Yeah, I kind of like that too. It's like more in the theme to copy
Yeah,
the eye.
there's so
I
many
think we gotta like
eyeballs.
let that one go. I think I mean we can stay on for the
Yeah,
next
sure. Yeah, let's see if there's if anyone else who bids. But if this one ends, then we can take a stab at the next one. Just review. Maybe there'll be some interesting actions available. So for this one, there's just the rectangle circle. But every auction, there's like a random set of different actions that are available. Which, by the way, for everyone listening, one of those actions is called finishing touch, and it's what ends the collection. And after auction 96, that will start becoming available at a slowly increasing rarity. So you'll see some, you probably won't see too many for the first few days, but technically it's possible. It's like 0.001% or something. But over the next few days, they will become more and more like a higher rarity. So if you see the finishing touch action, you'll be able to place a bid with that, and that will be the last auction of the whole collection. So stay tuned for that.
9 seconds.
Yeah. That means it's probably going to win. I like this one. The double eyeball camera option.
I think it works well. When does the next auction start?
So it should start soon. I'm using something called chain link automation, and it will basically they basically call a function on my contract off chain periodically, and then whenever that returns true, they will call another function, which in my case progresses the auction. So sometimes it takes a couple seconds. Sometimes it's really instant. It's never more than like minutes or anything. And that will basically mint the NFT to chain left in this case and start the next auction. So yeah, when that happens, we can take a quick look at which actions are available. But yeah, in the meantime, what are you interested in next? And is any projects that you want to share with anyone who's watching?
Yeah, I mean, so the Signals project is dropping her date TBD, but either later this month or the start of next month, late March, early April, and it's a collaboration with it's a collaboration basically born from the Spells community, and it's this guy who turned out to be a Grammy-winning music producer who's produced like everyone from like J-Lo to Mark Ronson, and he's worked with all these incredible people, and he wanted to release his own album for the first time, and not only that, but it's his first project in Web3. So it's a music NFT, it's a Spells expansion, and there's a visual art component with collaboration from a fine artist named Ted Mineo, who he works in sort of digital collage, and the whole piece is sort of this like wild collage of music, generative art, EVM art, cross project with the Spells interaction with Signals, which I just glossed over because this is my second time explaining it. I forgot to mention this. Everything starts as noise, so, and you have to find the signal from in the noise using spells. So you have to cast your spells. Every token begins as this kind of jumbled generative image, and a sort of noise audio file. So it's sort of this like, noisy audio visual art. That's awesome. And then by casting the appropriate spell, you can level up through these different signal levels. And these are the sort of the tracks of the album, and they have increasing rarity. And each level has a positive and a negative signal. And so that's created by Chat, is the producer. And there's sort of a like upbeat track and a more minor key track. There's different interpretations of what plus and minus means. So yeah, it's kind of like, it's a pretty intricate project, and pretty fun. My own sort of, we were talking about like the shape of things to come. I think that there's like just like a super zoomed out for like the whole space. There's two directions to building down the rabbit hole, which is doing like these kind of out there on-chain interactions, on-chain value. So like, these kind of fun, interesting NFT projects like TheHours, especially things that are fully on-chain in my view. Mm-hmm. And then sort of going up, which is out towards like the real world, where we're trying to create, use for existing businesses and systems and workflows and all that. And I think both are really like worthwhile, and I personally like want to be doing both.
Yeah, I feel like one way to, when you say that, what it makes me how it like works in my head is like, one is, I feel like the on-chain art is kind of like trying to showcase the technology more. Like it's kind of part of the cool factor is that it's fully on-chain. Like you could make this SVG thing off-chain and it would be very easy, but the fact that it's on-chain is cool. And then when you go more upstream, like you're talking about, it's kind of probably more about the actual value that's being provided. And you might be trying to create something where like hopefully the end consumer doesn't even know that it's like using blockchain, but it's just actually using it in like a unique way and tying in like real, great artists or great companies, and just really trying to build creative use cases. Do you think about it that way at all?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that this is my own endeavors are like kind of, at least the way I started was I wanted to demonstrate that there's potential for this technology that goes way beyond, a JPEG.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the pure NFT that we had back in 2021, early or end of 2020. But I think now we're at this like kind of point of evolution, and we now have seen a lot of projects that have demonstrated a lot of this potential. And now it's sort of thinking more like there's art and experiences and virtual, experiences and things that are just really purely virtual and are valuable sort of inherently in a strictly, digital virtual sense. And then there's things that have traditional, value, we can say real world value. And both like are true, and both are really interesting to push on. And I think creating art and just on-chain virtual stuff, like I think it's really cool. And I think that people shouldn't be like pretending that it's more than it is, or like I don't really love some of the business models that emerged. They're really not sustainable. And I think that I'm hoping that people, I know that there's an audience for that. I'm hoping that audience grows. People who are looking for, compelling EVM art and on-chain art and novel kinds of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was a great conversation. Loved your take on hour number 90. I guess you can quickly like tab forward and see what the next one will be like, but we can just take a quick look and then call it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice. Someone used the window. So yeah, some of them are locked for people who are holding my previous collection. So sadly, you only get rectangle for this one. But it looks like we have a holder with a pretty. It's so funny that, oh my God, this isn't even the same eyeball from that's in the background. It's just like everyone likes the eyeball. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I love the eyeball. I kind of want this one. Like, I want to be able to mint Dinosaur's suggestion here. Yeah, that's okay.
That's a great one. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. It was great picking your brain on all these topics, and make sure everyone who's watching to stay tuned for signals. Follow 0xalxi on Twitter, so you don't have to remember that insane URL.
Yeah. Apologies.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And this concludes the series of live streams. So thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. And the hours will keep running for an undetermined amount of time, but probably just 2 or 3 more days, as that finishing touch action will start to increase or decrease in rarity, and will start to become more available and might end the collection soon. But yeah, with that, thanks everyone, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, man.